Okay, I'm going to go very briefly through task number 4. So just like usual, if you go into the Module 4 folder, you can find the link to submit the assignment for task number 4. And then what you open up is this PDF talking about what it is that is required of this particular assignment. So your goal for task number 4 is to show your readers that you can analyze text, visuals, events by using 3 specific theoretical frameworks explained by Craig Smith in Rhetoric and Human Consciousness. So now that we've finished that entire textbook, we've spent all of this time, quickly reading through it, can you use those individual theories to make sense of another piece? What we're going to use that is on a TED Talk. So can we use the theories created by Craig Smith, the theories discussed by Craig Smith, to analyze a TED Talk? So you'll choose 3 theories that were discussed and addressed by Craig Smith. You need to choose theories in different modules, so they can't all come from one of the modules. You need to spread them out. And then you'll choose a TED Talk that you want to analyze from any of the TED examples, and then you'll analyze the talk from 3 different perspectives, applying the 3 theories into your analysis. Okay, so a couple of really easy pitfalls that can fall into this. One is we have gone through the section on context, function, and media. So we know what McLuhan has to say about all of this. We know the direction that analysis headed after this. We know that context matters. So when you're dealing with the context of a TED Talk, this might be a really important theory. TED Talks have a lot of circulation, but for the most part, they're generally understood to be educational pieces for very specific reasons. Oftentimes, most of the authors of TED Talks or the speakers at TED Talks don't provide a significant amount of background theory. The assumption is because the TED Talk organization picked that person to be a speaker at that particular event, that's where the credibility lies. We don't necessarily know where the rest of it comes from. TED is supplying the credibility in that particular context. So we want to keep that in mind with our analysis and with the theorists that you select. The other big one is until we get through the Dark Ages, no rhetorical theory can get us inside the head of the speaker. Even after the Dark Ages with all of the postmodern theory, we can't know why a speaker chose to make the decisions that they did, but we can analyze from like an Aristotelian perspective the kinds of knowledge that can be made and the ways that knowledge can be made and the ways that knowledge can be understood based on this particular delivery or this particular use of an emotional appeal in this particular section of the speech. We can't assume to know, we can't say that the speaker chose this word for this reaction because we don't necessarily know what the connection is between those two things. We make assumptions about communication based on our best possible knowledge and what Aristotle, what Cicero were trying to put together, what all of those ancient theorists were trying to understand is what are the approaches to the best way to make knowledge, not how can I best convince my audience, nor how do I get everybody to agree with me. So we really need to keep in mind what is the context of the TED Talk, how is that influencing audience interaction, the points that the individual speaker is making based on maybe some of the assumptions that they're making about the audience. We don't know for sure, but we can make some very educated guesses using postmodern theorists. And then if we're dealing specifically with the making of knowledge, why would they choose to appeal in a very specific way? And how does that relate to argument conveyance through a specific rhetorical appeal or something of the nature? So make sure to really understand how each of these pieces connect. How does your theory connect to your video? How does the video situate itself as a TED Talk, and what does that mean for your theory, and what does that mean for the cultural understanding? So one of the videos that's on there, and I can't remember who it is, but it's a supermodel who's talking about why we need to question some of these gender norms. When she's talking about this and when she's delivering this speech, there is kind of the assumption that TED Talks are geared specifically towards a college audience, although they're used in education across the board. So in that particular case, she's talking to not just young girls, not just 12-year-olds, but adult women and how they're making choices. And so we can start to understand a little bit about what that audience might know and what we think the author of that particular speech knows or understands about the audience, and then how all of that comes together in a specific way way to make meaning, to make knowledge, to make understanding. We can't know that she absolutely chose to use an emotional appeal for this specific purpose, nor can we always assume that we know who the audience is. There's a general understanding of how to situate and contextualize a TED Talk, but that doesn't mean that that's always the right way, nor that that's the only way. So it's a consideration that you need to keep in mind as you're selecting your theories from the Smith chapter, and then as you're analyzing the actual speech. So you'll choose a TED Talk that you want to analyze, and you'll analyze the talk from the 3 different perspectives. Your texts are going to be Craig Smith, the TED Talk of your choice, and then additional sources as needed to write a strong analysis. So there are a few theorists that might need additional information to support them or to fully develop their particular ideas as you're moving forward with this analysis. This particular assignment sheet provides a series of TED Talks that have a variety of different topics to them. Since we're moving towards your final paper, and I highly recommend that you spend a significant amount of time writing your final paper, I would recommend you select a TED Talk that's on a topic in relation to your final paper so that you can actually use it as a source in your final paper. So now you've got one more source to use speaking about your topic in a very specific way. If not, pick one that you find interesting. The content of the TED Talk is not really going to matter. It's going to be the focus on your analysis and how you choose to discuss rhetorical theory and how you relate all of these different ideas in relation to rhetorical theory, especially in the context of a TED Talk. That's the focus of this particular task. So here are some examples of TED Talks. The one thing I would caution you against is the TED Talks can be anywhere between 20 minutes and an hour. So give yourself some time to go through a few different TED Talks. We've already watched the Adichie one, so I wouldn't recommend that because we've already done an analysis of that. If one of these is one you use in your classroom regularly, I would analyze something different just so that you have access to something new, because the arguments that they make, we've only heard them a couple times as opposed to 100 times, will probably stand out to you more effectively, which is going to make your task more effective. So pick one in relation to your topic if you can. If not, pick one that you find interesting. Your analysis, like always, is going to include the introduction where you're going to summarize your focus. How do these 3 different analyses come together to form a cohesive paper? And then you'll have the body with your analysis and the 3 different sections of theory. And then you'll have a conclusion. So what does all of this mean? How are we supposed to understand all of this? And why is it important? Make sure to have, that overarching purpose to the whole thing. Why is it, besides the assignment, that you're analyzing this particular TED Talk with these particular theorists? What can we gain from this? Or what kinds of new knowledge can be made based on your paper or your analysis or your particular approach? Because that's really, really important. Using rhetorical theory, or, if we take the goal of Aristotelian rhetorical theory, it was to make knowledge and to understanding the making of knowledge. So do that in this paper. How do we make knowledge in relation to one of these videos? And why is that important? And why is that meaningful? We're not attempting to teach other people how to argue more effectively through this paper. Instead, we're trying to understand how does culture function, and then what do we do in relation to communication with that. This will be 3 to 5 double-spaced pages. Unlike task number 3, I won't be quite that picky about it, but try to keep it into the page limit. You're going to have a cover letter. Here are all of the questions for your cover letter, and then you will upload it to Baby Learn. If you have any questions, you're having difficulty finding a TED Talk, just let me know. Obviously, you can reach out to me through Twitter, or you can always send me an email. I'll see you guys online.